going on, everyone? Good morning to all of you who have decided to join me on this lovely Tuesday. Monday. Monday? It's Monday. My mind is losing me. So, if you aren't aware, out of nowhere, at least to my mind, Kobold Press has put out their very first playtest packet for Project Black Flag, as you can see right here. Oh, I gotta take down that calendar. Oop, it's the wrong day. So they put out their first playtest material. Also is not morning. No, it's still morning. So they put out their first playtest material, Project Black Flag, playtest packet 1. It was out of the blue. Did not see this coming, just suddenly got an email and decided to skim through it. It's only 12 pages long, so it's not that big, but it has at least a good idea about where they're going with this. It has 3 races in it, human, or they're calling it lineage, so it's lineage and heritage, so a lot like Pathfinder, who has ancestry and heritage. This one's going lineage and heritage. But beyond that, it only has it has 2 backgrounds, scholar and soldier, and then it has a few talents, which are kind of like feats. So I want to go through this, just kind of get my ideas and opinions about this out. I'm probably going to draft up something small like I normally do when comparing UA material, especially 1D&D, to standard material, but it's gonna kind of be weird, and you'll see why. So first things first, let's just kind of give this a quick overview. So for one, they have not come down, or they have not officially put in a name. So this is just called the Core Fantasy Role-Playing. That's it. At least for the time being, I'm either going to call it Black Flag or just maybe shortening it to CFS or CFR. CFR or CFS. Yeah, because Core Fantasy System. But probably just going to refer to it as Black Flag just because it's easier. But if you see, Core Fantasy System, that's just in reference to what this is going to be. Now they say here that it's backwards compatible with 5e and also can be used in conjunction with any 5e material. This aspect of it kind of, brings a smile to my face. I brought this up in one of the previous streams about recognizing that 5e is now its own thing, and there are going to be 5e publishers, that Wizards of the Coast is a 5e publisher. So it's nice to see that Kobold Press is kind of doing it as a 5e, tangential project. So it says here that it says right here, it does not include class options, which will start coming out in Playtest Packet 2. So if you want to make a character, you would have to still use what already exists in 5e. But then that means that everything here kind of has, some working with 5e. And it even says here, though, player characters used or created using the Black Flag system are slightly more powerful than characters created using 5th edition. But they are close enough to that a 5e fighter and a Black Flag fighter could still play the same table. If you want to make them equivalent, give the 5e character a feat that character would meet the prerequisites for at first level. This is something we've already seen being rolled out with other UAs. Going to pop my other screen up here. We are already aware that in the most recent UAs, they have started doing first level feats that can be associated with your backgrounds. So, you know, the urchin gets the lucky feat, the sailor gets the tavern brawler, the soldier gets savage attacker. So these are already things that we're starting to see 1D&D do. So I don't necessarily think that, well, obviously we don't know what they're going to look like, what a 5e fighter looks like compared to a Black Flag fighter. But what I want to make a point of is, after reading this, a Black Flag character using the feats, the talents that are available in here are so much more powerful than a 5e character. We'll get to that. That's at the very end. We'll get to that. All right, so, you know, we're just going to kind of skim through this first part. The world is called Labyrinth, or it's just the Labyrinth, a fantastical universe of infinite worlds. Here you'll find realms like Midgard, Hades, and the Dreadful Domains. I love this idea that they're establishing that all other universes exist, or all other worlds exist within this, you know, one universe known as the Labyrinth. You know, that's very cool, because then you can kind of, like, you know, branch out from there. And then it goes into, you know, there's a GM and PC. So it is, obviously they're not going to use DM, because DM is actually a term more associated with Dungeons and Dragons. But then it goes on to talk about what is an RPG, what are the dice, you know, what are the elements. We don't really need this. They have already announced that it's going to be called the Monster Vault. So, you know, whatever the whole thing is called, that'll be down the line. All right, so in here, this is just about building characters. This is a lot of the same information you'll see in almost every book out there. You know, create a concept, choose a class. This is how you level up. Hit dies, they all work the same way. It's dependent on your class. Your proficiency bonus, you know, that goes up with you. So it's one of those things where this is a lot of the same information you'll see. Ability scores are still the same thing. Ability modifiers are still the same thing. Point buy is still the same thing. This is actually a different standard array than 5e. So if we see here, so if we look up the normal standard array, it's my tab, there we go. So standard array in 5e is going to be 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. This one is actually giving you a slightly larger one, with that 16 instead of a 14. So it's actually pretty nice. I don't know if I could ever find the specific, I've looked for this in the past. There was actually an old, list that kind of looked like this one, where it shows, like, yeah, kind of like this, but it gave stuff for, like, heroic arrays and things like that. I haven't been able to find it in a long time. You know, let me look up if I can look up heroic array. No, probably. Is this it? No, this is something very similar. Well, okay, yeah, so it's closer to these. So standard array, well-rounded, specialized, heroic, and peasant. So, you know, it all works very similar. The heroic array has been increased, but basically, you know, this is going to be your standard layout. Joke's on you, DM means daddy master. Hell yeah. So standard array, that's generally the one that is offered in D&D. The well-rounded kind of, you know, takes away that really high score and, you know, bumps it down a little bit further. Whereas the specialized array takes away that 10, you know, and takes away from the 10 and the 12 to give you those higher bumps into something more specific. This is more of a min-maxer, you know, setup. And then the heroic array bumps it up by 2. You're not having any negative modifier. And in essence, this is closer to what Pathfinder does. Pathfinder gives everybody starting out at 10, and then you increase from there. That's actually something that we can see over here in the Path Builder, where when you're making a character and you're setting your abilities, everything starts out as 10, and then these each give a plus, you know, a plus bonus. So if we, you know, you can see right now we have a +4 in strength, a +4 in dex, and a +2 in con, and then each one of these is going to bump that up by 2. Now, I'm fairly certain you cannot go any higher than 18. Oh yeah, my bad. I'm fairly certain you can't go any higher than 18 in that, because, like, I think to go up to the next level, it's like you need 2 points to go to a 19 or something. So I'm not familiar enough with that to say that. Oh, actually, oh no, that's a stat increase. Ability. Okay, so here we go. Let's just bump this up real quick. So, ability boost. Here we go. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so the 2 points at that is only giving you up to a 19, not a 20. So you kind of get a little bit of a stronger character to start with. And then it tapers off towards the end. Like I said, it's closer to the heroic array, in my opinion. So choosing a lineage and a heritage. Yeah, choose a background, fill in the blanks. Okay, so this is the checklist that they're introducing of make sure that you have everything on here whenever you're making your character. So know your class. Note the hit die. If you have spell casting, figure out what your spells are. Note any skills you're proficient in, any equipment you have. So this is all the stuff that you are gonna be more used to. What I will say over here is that caught my eye when I first read through this is luck points are set to 0. What exactly does that mean? In 5e, you have inspiration, and you either have it or you don't. And there's a luck feat. So if we go into feats, there's obviously the lucky feat, which gets you 3 luck points. So is that in reference? Is there going to be something similar to that? Or is this going to be their form of inspiration? We also know in Pathfinder that there are hero points, but I actually don't know what those do. I never actually looked into that. So the rabbit feet. Yeah, that's right. All right. So actually, let's look at hero points. So you can spend 1 to re-roll a check. You have to use the new one. You can spend all of yours to avoid death. When you use your, you can do this when your dying condition would increase. You lose the dying condition, stabilize with 0. Okay, so they might be doing something similar to that, whereas instead of having advantage or disadvantage on a check with inspiration, the luck points are probably going to be similar to Pathfinder's hero points. I'll say it's my window. I heard something scratching. So we're going to continue down. Gaining levels, they're doing the same thing that is in most systems. So think it's no. Where is it? Well, you know what? We can just pull out the PHB on here. And click the wrong button. This is what I want. And we're gonna do experience. Where is that list? There we go. All right, so character advancement. That was the phrase I couldn't think of. So if we look at this, this is the amount of experience you need to go from one level to the next. Now, if we look at this, it's very similar. I think they made a mistake. So if we look here, you know, you need 300 points, or, you know, you need 0 XP to be at level 1. You need 300 to go up to 2, and then you need 2,700 to go up to 3, whereas in D&D, that's 900. And then they double up this. So I think this is just a very simple clerical mistake where this is supposed to be down and this is supposed to be 900. That's what I personally think, because that caught me off guard when I first saw it. And when I originally pulled this up, I had that thought of, you know, of there being like just a basic mistake, because there's another one that that we'll be able to see later on. So, but yeah, other than that, it also does the milestone, you know, which is very much the same thing as what most people do. As a general rule, first level PCs should hit level up milestones after a single game, second should hit it after 2, and then it should be 3, and approximately every 3 sessions after thereafter. I don't believe that. That would in essence be 1 session, 3 sessions, 6 sessions, and then what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 times 3. We're looking at 51 sessions. So we're looking at a total of 57 sessions in order to get players from 1 to 20. I could understand in shorter campaigns that might be the case. As those who watch this channel, you probably know that the Phandelin 5 group is at level 10, and we've been playing for 70 sessions. So yeah, I think slowing some of that stuff down. But I also think that's because in a lot of cases, these developers do multiple encounters. So that doesn't depend on how many sessions an encounter. Well, and that's it. So it really depends on how quickly things move. You know, I don't necessarily see, you know, I see that being the case if you were running a very fast campaign, not necessarily the kind that I run. But also I run longer form campaigns, so that's, you know, that's my own thing. All right, so after that, we're looking at lineages. You know, ages is all going to depend on your lineage, size as well, and then speed, which, funny enough, there is a bit of a difference on some of the speed stuff. So we're first going to look at dwarf. Now we are going to look at this from the PHB. So dwarves, on average, live about 300 years. That's, you know, all well and good. It's about this, you know, it's pretty much the same exact thing on here. Between 4 and 5 feet tall, 150 pounds, your medium, base walking speed. You can see it's pretty much the same thing. But on here, I don't know why this is listed there. I never actually noticed that. So as you can see here, they are calling dark vision, what would normally be dark vision, as night vision. So it's still the same thing. It's practically verbatim. So 60 feet dark vision, And then on top of that, you get the Dwarven Resilience, where you have advantage on saves and against to be saved, and Dwarven Toughness, where your hit point maximum increases by 1 and increases by 1 every time you gain a level. So that's not a thing here. That was actually a thing for the for the Hill Dwarf. So the Hill Dwarf subrace had Dwarven Toughness. So now all dwarves are getting this. So that's actually really nice, because that's a very powerful ability, and it makes the dwarf pretty strong just to start with. But then we're going to look at the sub races. So the heritage here, obviously alignment I really don't worry about, because that's just its own thing. Dark vision seems more accurate for being inside. I think it's whatever. I mean, dark vision, night vision, night vision I think has a certain gravity to the word. When you think of like night vision goggles, to say that you have dark vision goggles is to say that you have goggles that give you dark vision. To say that you have night vision goggles has like a very like Splinter Cell covert ops stuff. But I'm okay with it. I think it's fine. You can always reference it as what you want. All right, so first heritage here listed for the dwarf is the Fire Forge. I fucking love this already. 100% absolutely love this. So what this is you get proficiency with glassblower's tools or smith's tools. You also get to double your proficiency bonus with that. And yeah, so you get to double your proficiency bonus with that. You get resistance to fire damage. You can read, write, and speak Ignin, which is the primordial dialect for fire elementals. You have an ability called Reforge. Your people have a deep connection with elemental fire and have collectively learned how to repair forged items with a touch. You know the mending cantrip and can cast it as an action. However, you can use this trait to repair objects made only of metal, such as reconnecting two halves of a broken sword. I love this. I love the concept of a heritage of dwarves that is focused around the forge. It's such a cool concept. I love the flavor that comes with it. Like it says here, to this day, these communities toil in the heat of magma, crafting weapons, armor, and other goods noteworthy, even among the finest dwarven crafts. I love this. I love this so much. Fire resistance is such a powerful resistance because so many creatures do fire damage. The expert artisan is very cool. It kind of is in line with the tool proficiency that dwarves get in general and kind of goes in line with that stone cunning. But then to really make it about forging, and not just like I know the rocks, but like having that craft of you can cast mending. That's such a cool ability, and I really love that. But I think it's appropriate to have it that it's only metal, because I could see a fire forged dwarf possibly playing a very appropriate forge cleric. Forge clerics are really cool. They get that awesome ability where you can wait, where was it? Yeah, you can craft equipment, but you also get to give equipment a bonus. So I love this idea of like coming across a broken sword on the ground and somebody just kind of kicking it off to the side, being like, oh, this is garbage. And your character goes over and picks it up and says, oh, it needs just a bit of love. and you see, you know, the two where it's split gets sealed back together as you cast Mending on this, and then you give it the Blessing of the Forge to turn it into a +1, you know, a +1 weapon. It's such a cool idea of having that resourcefulness, and I love that. I love this flavor so much. So happy that this is already here. Up next, we have the Stone Dwarf Heritage. So this one is more along the lines of the classic Mountain Dwarf. So with this one, you're getting proficiency with the battle axe, the hand axe, light hammer, and war hammer. So same thing that you're getting here, combat, dwarven combat training. You're also getting the armor training, which is pretty much the same thing. This is also where the speed comes in. So unlike in here where you get this speed just as is, or sorry, there we go. Yeah, where you get this speed just as is, in here that is tied to your heritage. You're also getting that proficiency with some tools, much like you are here, and Eye for Quality, which kind of goes in line again with Stone Cunning. Whenever you make an ability check related to the origin of metalwork or masonry, you can add your proficiency bonus to the roll. If you have proficiency in a relevant skill or tool, you can double it. So this is really cool, being able to still get this kind of stone cunning masonry, but also allowing it to be metalwork. So I like the flavor that they're rolling with here. All right, so up next is elves. Elves are actually a little more straightforward in here, in my opinion. There's two options that I kind of see here. So very simply, basic elf, you know, 30-foot speed, just like before. Night vision, again, kind of what we expect. Keen sense, still getting that proficiency with perception. Magic ancestry, so this is what they're calling essentially the Fey ancestry. I don't know if I don't know why they chose Fey, or why they chose the word magic instead of Fey. We might see that lore developed later on. And then trance, same thing. Instead of, you know, you don't need to sleep. Instead, you enter a meditative state, semi-conscious for 4 hours a day. You can choose whether or not to dream. After this, you gain the same benefit as other creatures do from 8 hours of sleep. So it's pretty much the same thing. It just is part of that. So this, when I was reading through this word struck me very hard. I was like, what is a cloud elf? Because obviously that's not a thing that's ever been, you know, put out there before. But the moment I read this right here, deeply intertwined with the tales of magic, I realized immediately it's a high elf. That's what they're referring to. So these cloud elves is how they're referring to high elf. So they are there to study the mysteries of the skies and eventually become the heart of thriving cities. So with this touch of magic, choose a school of magic of which you have cultivated an affinity. You learn a cantrip of your choice from that school of magic. When you reach 3rd level, you choose a 1st level spell. When you reach 5th, you get a 3rd level spell, and you learn these spells and can cast them at their lowest level. So, I want to talk about this real quick. So obviously you're getting proficiency with Arcana, makes total sense. You're associated with magics, and you know Common and 2 additional languages. So with this one, you get an extra language. So you're actually getting another language with Kobold presses, or with Black Flag, and the proficiency in Arcana, but you are losing elf weapon training from this. So I think it's a fair balance, you know, but this design, this touch of magic of getting a cantrip, a 3rd level spell, and a 5th level, or sorry, a 1st level spell and a 5th level spell goes hand in hand with how elves are being treated now, especially from the Mordenkainen presents Monsters of the Multiverse. So if we look at this in here, you know, let me turn it up. There we go. So if we look at the Eladrin, or not the Eladrin, wow. Who was it? It was the Sea Elf? Why did I think... Oh, you know what? No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the Fire Ganassi. That's actually what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the Fire Ganassi. Fire Ganassi get a similar ability to that. But who was it else? It was... it was the Drow. So yeah, so the Drow get a few abilities in here, which kind of goes in line with this touch of magic. So Fairy Fire and Darkness, so it's obviously, you know, not a third level spell, but Drow getting the ability to cast Dancing Lights, Fairy Fire, and Darkness goes in line with this touch of magic. And I think it's fairly appropriate that that the elf race or the elf heritage that is tied to magic would get that. Now, what I will say is that this here actually allows you to deviate from the restriction that this particular one chooses. So originally you get a cantrip from the wizard spell list. So if you wanted to take something that was, say, exclusive to the druid spell list, so if we go into here and let's take everything away and just look at druid. Well, if you wanted to take Shillelagh or Produce Flame, you know, or Primal Savagery, you couldn't do that before. But with this new one, you can, because you can just say, oh, I'm taking Conjuration, and that's going to give me Produce Flame. Or I'm going to take Transmutation, and that's going to give me, you know, Transmutation magics. And then as we go along, well, now we're starting to be able to deviate into, you know, these later levels. So we got Transmutation. So now, when we level up, we could take, you know, Pummel. Then we could take, you know, Exile from Nature, something like that. So, granted, these are all from third-party materials, but that's one of the nice things about this. I actually really like how this touch of magic works, because it gives something a little extra to the high elf in regard to how they're supposed to be connected to higher levels of magic. Up next, we have the Grove Heritage. Again, kind of like when I saw Cloud Heritage, I was like, all right, well, this is gonna be the Wood Elf. You know, Bountiful Forests, drawn by the primordial music of trees and beasts. It's Wood Elves. I mean, what do you expect? These are the two most common elves. So we got here Beast Affinity. Using gestures and sounds, you can communicate simple ideas with beasts and have advantage to interact with non-hostile creatures. So that is something that we don't have here. Now, there is a race that got something like this, and I want to say that it was Forest Gnomes. Yes, speak with small beasts. So Forest Gnomes got Speak with Small Beasts. It's essentially the same concept. You can communicate simple ideas with them. Then we got Canopy Walker, where you gain a climbing speed equal to your walking speed. So you don't get the increased movement that Fleet of Foot gave you, but you get an extra climbing speed. So I think there's a good balance there. This way you are somebody who is able to climb up into a tree, scout ahead through the foliage. I see a good side to both of them. I like the idea of this being somebody who is more accustomed to being in the trees. Then we're going to get the elf weapon training, which is the exact same as we had, and then the basic languages. So the main thing that you are losing here is, again, that movement speed as well as the ability to hide using Mask of the Wild. But I think the ability to chat with animals to a small degree and get that climbing speed is pretty good. I mean, personally, I'd rather have a higher climbing speed when I need it, rather than having an extra 5 feet of movement in general. Granted, 5 feet of movement is good when you're trying to outrun an enemy, but, you know, again, like I said, there is like a pro and con to both of them. And now we're on to the one that really kind of hit me weird. So we have the humans, which already are getting ambitious, where you gain proficiency in a free skill and gain an additional talent. So this is more along the lines of the variant human from 5e. Proficiency in a skill, you get a free feat. But humans are now getting heritages, which I really like. If we go back into the very first 1D&D UA that was put out, you can see we have something very similar. You gain proficiency in a skill, you gain a feat from that, and you gain inspiration when you finish a long rest. So we're already getting a little bit in here, but there's nothing beyond that. It's not like how the Ardling had different legacies, or how the Dragonborn had different, had different things, and the Dwarf had different things. This one is very much, didn't they put something similar to ambitious? Well, it is. It's just, it's versatile and skillful. It's the same thing. So you gain proficiency in a skill and you gain a feat. But again, that's basically the same thing the variant human was. It's just a skill, it's a feat, which are nice, but that's actually why people often took the variant human, because you got that extra feat and you could supplement a lot of stuff. But I like the concept of the two heritage. So when we look at nomadic, it is that you get resilient, you have advantage on checks and saves made to resist debilitating weather. Additionally, when you complete a short rest, you can reduce your exhaustion level by 1, and this cannot be used again until you take a long rest. You gain proficiency in survival, and you learn another language. So I love this idea of looking at the two kinds of humans that we've had in our civilization for years. You have the nomadic tribes that move and travel, spreading their culture and facing off against the wilds. Then you have the cosmopolitan, the street smarts ability. When in a city or urban environment, you cannot become lost except by magical means. You also can't be surprised except when you're asleep or incapacitated. Whenever you make a check related to understanding the significance or purpose of a building, right, or object from a culture you're not familiar with, you can add your proficiency bonus to that. And then you get 2 additional languages. So I love the concept between these. You have human culture that has, for a large portion of human culture, has been nomadic, moving and traveling from place to place, spreading our cultures. And then you have those that settle down into, cities and settlements and towns and start to build up their own culture from that. A lot of this stuff has kind of been built into other feats and in classes. But I like that humans now have a little bit of diversity with where they're coming from and what their culture is, because this really speaks to them having their own identity. You know, somebody who is who is a nomad, that might have just been the background, but now you have something that goes along with that. You're used to, you know, running into inclement weather, you know, as a nomad, but you're also spending a lot of time as a cosmopolitan with other cultures in your towns and cities that come to visit. So I really like this. I like that they added some diversity with the human race. All right, so now moving on to the backgrounds. We only have two. We have the scholar and the soldier. So I took some time to look into these. Now, when it comes to 5e, the only thing that we could really say would be similar to the scholar would be the cloistered scholar. It's a very similar kind of design, but the way this one works is you get in Black Flag, you get 2 skills of your choice from Arcana, Nature, History, and Religion. So very similar to what Cloistered Scholar did, but whereas Cloistered Scholar was you got History plus one of those other 3. If you already had History, it would just let you pick a free one. So this is kind of the same thing. You learn 2 additional languages, so same thing right here, and you get this basic set of equipment, which is, again, very similar to what we have over here. The talent, though, this is where we're looking at how D&D is starting to do those first level feats. As you remember here in the 1D&D playtest, you have feats now associated with backgrounds. The guard gets alert, the guide gets magic initiate, the gladiator gets savage attacker, and these feats are all first level. That kind of goes into this, where part of your background is getting a feat. So you can choose from one of these 3. This aspect of getting your choice of different feats is so nice, rather than these basic ones that say, okay, if you're an urchin, these are what you get, this is the feat that you get. And I understand that it gives you the guideline of like building your own, you know, pick 2 feats, pick a tool proficiency, pick a first level feat, but I like that this gives you more than just one. And this is something that I was actually in the process of attempting to do. I'm going to see if I can find the document fast enough, but I was in the process of making a background associated feat list right here. So as you can see with this, if you were a criminal or a spy, these were the feats that you could take. Now, this was well before 1D&D. This was before the idea of a first level feat. These are just general feats, you know, as they are. So they're a little more powerful, but this was kind of the concept I was going with, of having a curated list of what would associate with your character. So I like that this is how they're listing it, you know, giving at least 3 options to allow somebody to say, okay, it makes sense for me to have these 3, but maybe not necessarily this other one. And then I like this right here so much more than all of this. Now, I will personally say, when I started playing D&D, this suggested characteristics allowed me to really get an idea about what my character was. I feel like nowadays more people walk to the table with a character in mind, and now they're trying to build it out rather than having, you know, going through and using this to define your character. So I like that this is now just adventure motivation. You know, adventuring supplies me with the coin I need to fund my research. Awesome. That makes sense. That's a reason to go out and adventure. is it makes sense that your bond is to protect your students, and like, is that why you're going out? You know, what part of your personality trait is saying why you're adventuring, or your ideal? You know, your bond is really the only one that it could have been. I like that now motivation is there, because that is one of the things that I have seen so many people do, where they make a character, but they have no motivation to actually have a certain, you know, to actually have a reason to do this stuff. So I like that this is how they're rolling with it, at least for now, and we'll see if they add more to it, but I like this as it is. Yeah, so here's that same, very similar part. To customize a background, replace one talent list with another. Choose any 2 skills, choose a total of 2 tool proficiencies or languages from the sample backgrounds. So pretty simple and straightforward. And then we got our soldier, which we have the equivalent over here. So with a soldier, you're going to get animal handling, athletics, medicine, and survival. I like this so much more than athletics and intimidation. I think the idea of being a soldier and being intimidating is fine, if that's what you want to do. But I like the idea of, oh, you're a combat medic. You know, you're a soldier, but you're focused on medicine. So here, you get the medicine skill. I like having survival. You know, a soldier has to be able to move through areas that they're unfamiliar with, so they have to know that stuff. And maybe you're a soldier who works alongside animals. Maybe you have, you know, a companion that fights alongside you, and it would make sense for you to have animal handling. So I like that they give more options than just, oh, here's your 2. So I also like the fact that it now gives you proficiency with land or water vehicles. What's saying that a soldier can't be one that's on a boat? You know, that makes sense. Also, instead of getting a gaming set, you get a tool set. Now, we don't know what Kobold Press considers a tool. If a gaming set is going to be a part of that, because I could see that being something. But I like that it is. Not all soldiers do the same thing. That's exactly it. So, and then, yeah, so we got armor training, combat casting, or combat conditioning, which I really like that combat casting is in there, because of the fact that it is more driven towards spellcasters taking the soldier background. That's really cool to me. I really enjoyed seeing that whenever that was there. All right, so now we are on to the talents. Now the talents, as you can figure, are basically the same thing as feats. So, and like it says, you get one with your background. When you get an improvement, you can choose to increase a single ability score by 2, 2 scores by 1, or choose a talent from the list. Now, this obviously will play a weird language game if I ever switch any of my games over using Black Flag whenever that's solidified, because there is a series of books called Talents. But in Black Flag, talents are feats. So it's just as simple to say that. But what I want to say is Black Flag's talents are so much more stronger and so much more effective than 5e feats. There is no comparison between the two. Let's look at combat casting. What we have in comparison would be Warcaster. So Warcaster states that you get advantage on con saves made to maintain concentration. You can perform somatic components even if you have a weapon or shield in one or both of your hands. And when a creature provokes opportunity attack, you can use your reaction to cast a cantrip, or to cast a spell, sorry. It needs to be a time of 1 action and must target only 1 creature. So, this is all right. But let's look at combat casting. You automatically succeed on con saves made to maintain concentration if the spell, if the DC is lower than your spell casting DC. Now, to put this into reference, let's look at our old pal Smith. Now, Smith plays a 10th level high elf wizard and has a spell save DC of 18. So is the spell casting DC on here, is this? Because if that's the case, then Smith would have to take more than 36 points of damage in order to not immediately fail, which is kind of ridiculous, because if we look at what is concentration, it's going to be down here in this, you know, I'm gonna put it over here because I need to make this window a little bit bigger for the moment. So concentration is 10 or half the damage. So if Smith has an 18 DC, he would have to take 36 points of damage in order to, you know, to actually have to roll. I don't know why that thing started scrolling weird. Which is crazy to me. It's like, oh, you casted a spell at me while I'm concentrating on, I don't know, banishment. You dealt 30 points of, or 34 points of damage. Okay, cool. Wipe my shoulder. And if it's 10 plus your modifier, if that's what it is, even 15, that's still 30 points of damage. That you're, you know, that you're able to take. It's absolutely insane to me that is how powerful this is. Also, you're still getting so not only are you getting that, but you are also getting the ability to do an opportunity attack when a creature enters a space within 5 feet of you. So not only are you getting the normal ability of when a creature moves away from you, you're essentially getting the same thing as Polar Master, where when a creature moves into your space, that you get to hit them. What the fuck? And on top of that, you still get the whole, like, you know, you can use, you know, shields and weapons and still perform somatic. But my God, is combat casting so much more effective than war casting? And it blows my mind that this is a thing. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Also, I just want to point out, this also means that 20 points of damage, considering 10 is like the base level, anything below 20 points of damage, you'll pretty much always succeed. You know, I don't know what your spellcasting DC means. In my mind, that would be this, your spell save DC. But I don't understand how that can be balanced. If it's this, if it's 5, you know, or 10, I don't know. But if it's 18, boy, oh boy, is that a powerful ability. All right, so that's Warcaster. I'm just gonna put, I'm gonna have a note page over on my side. I'm gonna put warcasting is much better than or combat casting much better than Warcaster. All right, so Elemental Savant. Now moving on to Elemental Savant. So this one is very similar to Elemental Adept, where when you pick this, you choose one type of elemental damage: acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. When you cast a spell, you ignore resistance of that type, and you can also treat any one as a 2. This one is, again, more powerful in my opinion. When you choose this, you choose one of the 5 damage types. When you cast a spell that deals that damage, or that deals any damage, you can convert the damage type of that spell to the chosen element. So let's say, again, I already have Smith pulled up, but let's say, for example, Smith has, well, Smith really is focused on fire damage, so probably a bad example. But you know, let's look up some spells right now. We'll look up Evocation, and here we go. Eldritch Blast. That's force damage. You can turn that into fire now, or lightning, or thunder, or anything else. Let's look at what else we got. Beat of Frost. That deals cold damage. You can make that thunder, or lightning, or acid. You know, Acid Wind. You can make that fire. That's really powerful, because if you know that a creature is resistant to acid and you have Acid Wind, you can just simply say, okay, we're gonna ignore that. You know, like, all right, you have resistance to acid damage, that's cool. I'm gonna switch everything to fire. Or, oh, I use lightning bolt, but it, you know, because I have an enemy really far away that I want to hit with them, and there's a few enemies in between, but I want it to be cold damage because they're vulnerable to cold. You could also change Magic Missile to be an auto-hitting fire damage. I mean, the possibility with this is kind of crazy, but here's the other crazy part. When you have a spell that naturally uses that elemental damage type, you can re-roll any result of a 1 and take the newest one. So it's not even as low as treating 1s as 2s, which, yeah, it does give you a little bit more damage, but this could change, you know, a D6 from a 1 to a 6. That right there already kind of blows it out of the water. Elemental Savant is so much more powerful than Elemental Adept. It's not even funny. Like, and granted, in my own campaigns, I already have introduced like slight homebrew mechanics that allow players to change an element here and there. You know, they have to be so skilled with that one type that all of their damage types have to be of that one damage to be able to take a spell that doesn't do that and turn it into that. But there are rules that they have to make. There's things that they have to do. So that's something that is, this is allowing you to do that just as is, and that's crazy powerful. All right, so the next two here, so these are both part of magic talents. These two don't actually exist in 5e, so we're just gonna focus on them in general. So once per long rest, when you fail an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma save, you can choose to re-roll the save and take the new result. You must declare your intention to re-roll before the results are claimed, so you know, that's pretty straightforward. And if you're affected by an ongoing spell or magical effect due to failing one of these saves, you can repeat it at the end of the turn, ending it on a success, even if the ongoing magical effect would not typically allow you to do this. Now, there's not a lot of spells that do this, but there is one. No, not command. Oh, shoot. Oh shoot. Oh, my mind. What's the enchantment spell? Dominate person? Yes. Yeah, dominate person. So this one, if cast at a high enough level, you can have somebody do something for hours. Where is the one? It's compulsion. No, what is the one I'm thinking of? There's one very specific one that I think it might have been dominate person. But there, you could do that. Oh no, here it is, suggestion. I thought it was lower than that. Okay, so you could have somebody fail this wisdom save. If somebody suggested to you to do this thing for 8 hours and you failed that wisdom save, you're done. That's it. So you are now in the course of that 8 hours doing this thing. Having mental fortitude allows you to keep remaking that save, which is very, very powerful. That idea is just so mind-blowing to give you the ability of, because granted, most abilities have that thing where you can attempt to, at the end of your turn, you can attempt to remake this. This is such a powerful ability, especially if you are somebody who maybe has a lower wisdom save and you're dealing with enemies that enchant a lot. You can really help yourself with that. All right, up next, school specialization. I'm very curious to see what wizards look like in this system, because this ability right here, your ability to have the amount of golden time used to copy a spell, is a wizard ability right there. Every school of magic has like the school savant, and that halves the amount of time it takes to put golden time in, to copy a spell. So that right there is already powerful, but this is just essentially giving you an innate magic item that gives you a +1 to your spell casting. That's what that's doing. That's giving you a +1 to attack and a +1 to your spell save DC, just in a feat. So that is, and granted, you could bump your intelligence up if you're a wizard in order to do that. This could, if you got your intelligence to 20, you had a +5, you could still take this and bump it up, and it would be a base +6. That's pretty powerful in my opinion. All right. So on to armor training. This 100% is how it should have been done forever. When in 5e you want to gain proficiency with light armor, you have to take light armored. When you want to gain it in medium armor, you have to then take the medium armor feat. Or no, not medium armor master, moderately armored. So with this though, it's 1 feat and it just rolls with you. Now granted, I will say each one of these, lightly armored, moderately armored, and heavy armored, all do give you a bonus to your strength score. And even in some of the more recent stuff, like the most recent UA, there was still stuff, heavily armored, increased strength and con, lightly armored, gave you the lightly armored gave you both medium and light armor. But I kind of like how simple this one is. This just, hey, this gives you the training for the next level up. You didn't have armor? Cool, here's light armor. You already had light armor? Cool, here's medium. So it has, in my opinion, it's cleaner. So while it might not give you those pluses to your ASI, I kind of like how this one works. Armored Combatant, though, is very similar to Heavy Armor Master, where you're getting that reduction in damage equal to your proficiency bonus. Now, one of the things that has changed recently is in the OD&D, the 1D&D stuff, they have changed it from just being reduced by 3 to reduced by proficiency bonus. So that has changed in accordance. But this gives you a +1 to your AC, and I like that. As much as having this ASI is nice, I like that the idea of you are better at wearing armor is that your AC increases. Not that you gain more hit points, not that you can hit harder, but you are harder to hit. You are harder to take damage. So I like getting this +1 to AC with Armored Combat. Combat Conditioning. So this is very similar to the Tough feat when it comes to, your HP max increases by 2 for each level you have. It's the exact same thing as Tough. But also, when you gain a level, your new hit die is 1 size larger than your class typically grants. For example, a wizard with this talent would gain a D8 for their new hit die instead of D6. Every war wizard needs to take this. Getting that higher level hit die is so powerful in the grand scheme of things. The difference between a D6 on hit die and D8, especially if you roll your hit die, is tremendous. And I think that having this and being able to bump that up is very powerful, especially for fighters. Getting to go, if we look at a fighter, their hit die is a D10. You can now have the same hit die as a barbarian as a fighter. It's crazy. All right. So up next, hand to hand. The one thing that I can find that this is close to is Tavern Brawler. So you're getting proficiency with improvised weapons on Tavern Brawler, and unarmed strikes is a D4. You can also bonus action grapple, whereas with hand to hand, your proficiency is now in unarmed attacks. Or if you're a medium creature, your unarmed attacks now deal 1d6 plus strength. And if you're small, they deal 1d4 plus strength, and you have advantage on checks to initiate and escape a grapple. So I personally like this because I like the idea of being somebody who is more focused on unarmed combat. But I will say it definitely doesn't, if you wanted to play a strength-based monk, you could really rock a strength-based monk, and your martial arts die basically becomes pointless until you reach level 11. This giving you the damage value of a short sword. Giving this feat, giving you the damage output of a short sword. Granted, it's not finesse, so you have to use your strength. But if you are playing a monk and work with your DM to be a strength-based monk, you can have a very powerful class or very powerful build right at the very beginning. Like, it is crazy how good this would be. All right, so now we're on to technical talents, which our first one was magic talents, and then we went on to martial. Now we're on to technical, which is the non-combat abilities and utility. So polyglot, that is essentially the same thing as linguist. So you're learning 3 additional spells, same thing as with linguist. But you get this really cool ability where you have advantage on charisma checks made to interact with non-hostile creatures from those 3 languages. And when you make an ability check to understand the verbal or written language you don't know, you get to add your proficiency bonus with it. Now, this very much reminds me of the anthropologist background, where you get the adept linguist, allowing you to communicate with creatures that don't understand your language, where you can watch them and see how they speak with one another, and that allows you to understand them. So I like this because it kind of plays into that. Now, what I want to point out is that if the languages you take, obviously you cannot take common, that would be so broken. But if you take the more common languages, such as Elf, Dwarf, and Halfling, you now have the ability to have advantage on charisma checks to a very big portion of the people that you're going to interact with in most campaigns. Elves and Dwarves and Halflings show up everywhere. And the fact that you could get advantage on charisma checks against them is ridiculously powerful. Trade skills. So gaining proficiency in a skill and 1 tool type, or in 2 tools or vehicles. And then lastly, as long as you have the equipment, you can spend a day plying your trade and expect to be paid 2 gold or paid with goods and services of equivalent materials. The only thing that kind of compares to this in 5e would be the skilled feat, where you gain proficiency in any combination of 3 skills or tools. So granted, you don't get a vehicle with that, but you get the skills and tools. And the only other thing that I can even somewhat close to would be something like a clan crafter, where you have this ability to like make stuff, and be able to sell those things. I like this. It also kind of goes in line with the first level feat that was introduced in the first 1D&D playtest of Crafter, where, you know, you can actually make more stuff. You get these tool proficiencies, you can craft a little bit better. I like, though, this one has, you know, some material association with it. So I like that. I like the trade skills feat. But that brings us to the end. So overall, I will say I like what I am seeing so far. I think that we are in a very good place to start with. Oh God. I think that we're in a very good place to start with, when it comes to what we're looking at. So are they seeking feedback from somewhere? I actually don't know. I was just about to open up my Thunderbird app and see if that is the case. Yes. Okay. So, here it is. So I'm going to put this in the chat. I'm also going to put this in my Discord channel. All right, you know what? We're just going to fill this out together. All right, so which one have I playtested? I have not playtested any. Well, you know what? I'm just going to read through this real quick. I just want to see what they want to know. Did you encounter any mechanical issues with something you playtested? If a mechanic was confusing, did not work as expected, seemed too underpowered. I don't think anything is underpowered. Do you have strong feelings towards anything you play tested? For example, did you love a particular detail? Did you find anything offensive? Did you hate the way something worked? Feel free to provide any playtest thoughts or feedback here. All right, so I probably won't have the opportunity to play test this, but I probably will fill this out after here. Now, what I'm going to say is that, did I encounter any mechanical issues with anything that I play tested? No. I can say no for certain on that. What I will say though is the character advancement grid, wherever the hell that went, here it is. This needs to be fixed. I think this is wrong. These 3, 4, and 5 need to be typo corrected. So that wouldn't be anything mechanically, I guess, but that probably would be. If anything, I would just put it down here. Did I have strong feelings towards anything play tested? The feats are very powerful, and I really like how the humans have a diversity now. I think that's really nice. Also, I love the flavor of the Fireforge. So, Cloud Elves also, Touch of Magic is a really nice spell, or I mean a really nice ability to get access to spells of your choice. So that's also really nice. Again, the backgrounds are fairly mundane, but these talents are just so powerful that I do want to give them credit for that. So I probably will fill this out. I'm going to do it after I head off of here. But that's going to do it for today. So I wasn't expecting on doing a stream today. I'm going to be getting some sleep here in a few hours, because I'm going to be waking up in about 12 hours to drive to the airport and go out to fly out to Arizona. So that'll be fun when that happens. So again, yeah, wasn't expecting on doing a stream today, but you know what? Hey, here it is. We got some Kobold press stuff. But thanks for hanging out with me, Glenn and Stacy. Glad to have you here. I know Jared was here earlier, but yeah, thanks for hanging out. I will see you guys in a week when I'm back here on the 20th doing my next calendar dungeon. Yeah, so you guys have a wonderful day. Enjoy your day.